Hello, friends, and welcome to a civics, politics history lesson. So, normally I'd be sitting down and just shooting the breeze. However, I chose to stand up and to show the urgency of this message while also showing off my fashions and my amazing physique. Yes, get into it. So, as we are aware, 2020 has been a very interesting year with the coronavirus, the Karens, so on and so forth. However, it's also a very, very important year as far as the federal government goes because it is the presidential election. Now, I will preface by saying that those of you guys who do vote in presidential elections, also make sure you vote in your local elections because that's where the real change comes from. However, we're going to talk about this thing in the presidential election that people don't seem to understand very much: the electoral vote and the electoral college. So people always ask, and I hear this quite a bit, what's the electoral vote? The electoral vote is decided based on a popular vote of each state and given a number that's allocated to the states based on their population. The Electoral College are the electors who actually go and cast that vote based on the popular votes of their state. However, they're not obligated to do so. So, the Electoral College consists of 538 electors. The winner of any presidential election must get over half of that number, so that means 269, or as we like to do now, around 270. Now, the numbers add up as follows. You get 100 from the Senate, you get 438 votes from the Congress, and you get 3 to Washington, D.C. per Amendment number 23 in 1961. The Electoral College is tabulated in accordance to the state's popular vote. The winner then receives all of the corresponding electoral votes, and Congress counts these votes the first week of January in a joint session with the Vice President. If no majority has been reached, then the House will select the President and the Senate the Vice President. Now, initially, the idea was to have Congress vote for President, but that would have came into conflict with separation of powers. So, each state was granted a number of electors that matched the number of votes in Congress. Now, these electors and these numbers were determined at the time in 1787 by a combination of the Connecticut Compromise and the Three-Fifths Compromise. Now, so those of you guys that aren't aware, basically how it used to go back in the olden days was more rural states at the time, they did not feel like they had the right representation because, again, they had less populace, and their big fear at the time was that they wouldn't have their voices heard. Totally legitimate. So there was a plan put forth by Mr. Wilson, who decided that, hey, you know what, we're going to try to go for a bicameral house, meaning two houses, which is why we have the Senate and House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is based strictly on your populace number. So you get X amount of representatives based on your populace number, which they consider to be the lower house. The upper house, or the Senate, has equal representation no matter what the population is, 2 senators from each state. Now, this allowed for proportional representation to be effective, as well as equal representation. Now, that is the Connecticut Compromise. Three-Fifths Compromise had to be put in because the slave-owning states felt they did not have enough power, and they felt that even though their slaves, technically speaking, were property, they should be counted towards their total numbers and to pat them out. So they enacted what's called the Three-Fifths Compromise. The Three-Fifths Compromise basically said that slaves are not people, they are property. However, they will count for 3/5 of a person, allowing for the numbers to be bolstered. Charming, I know. Now, people always wonder when they talk about the Electoral College, does my vote matter? What's the popular vote? What's the electoral vote? So, break it down. The popular vote is pretty much a direct vote. So when I vote, it's one vote. When you vote, it's one vote. When they vote, it's one vote. Boom, 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 boom. Very direct. Now, people are under the impression that if you win the popular vote, then more often than not, you win like the electoral vote in the Electoral College. However, there have been 4 instances where that has not been the case. Andrew Jackson, 1824, lost to John Quincy Adams, despite winning the popular vote because it was thrown to the House of Representatives. Samuel J. Tilden, in 1876, lost to Rutherford B. Hayes in the same fashion. Grover Cleveland lost to Benjamin Harrison in 1888. Al Gore lost to George W. Bush in 2000. And Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election to Donald Trump in the same fashion, despite the fact she had 3 million more popular votes. Because guess what? The votes matter per state, not necessarily overall in the general country. So that's where this lovely thing called swing states really matters. Because most states, generally speaking, they have this idea of whether they're going to go Democrat or Republican, and they're pretty much just deadlocked and they're locked in. However, there are some states that go back and forth either way, and those states are Michigan, Colorado, Florida, New Hampshire, Iowa, Minnesota, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin. However, we have been seeing a growing trend since the midterm elections that will now include Georgia, Arizona, and Texas. That now means that these states can go either way. Now, there have been some shifting to the right, such as, Maine and Michigan and things of that nature. I'm sorry, Michigan and Minnesota and things of that nature. There have been shifting some to the left, such as Arizona, Texas, and Georgia. So, pretty much the people's big issue with the electoral vote and electoral colleges, pretty much those aforementioned states now have all the voting power. So basically, the election comes down to those few states. That's been a problem. People have been talking about abolishing electoral college and just voting by direct popular vote because, quite frankly, people feel it's an antiquated, institution. However, other people feel that it saves the Constitution and it also, keeps the tradition going, and it's what the founding fathers wanted. So, there it is to you. That's the electoral college. That's the popular vote. That's the electoral vote. This is why we have the electoral college. This is why we have it the way we have it. Now, my job here is not to tell you whether one way is right is the other. However, you can choose right then and there which you decide is best for you. If you want to vote, please vote your conscience, vote for who you think is best. But remember, if you're in a swing state and should the person that everybody wants to win loses, don't tell anybody who you voted for. Save yourself a little bit of a headache. Okay?